welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan. I started this podcast because I want to inspire people to go after their dreams. There's so much potential for joy and whimsy in this world, but we're often taught to choose what's sensible instead. And while that might work for some people, it's not working for me. And lately, I have also been on a positivity journey. I'm being more intentional about where my energy is going. I'm done pouring into things that don't serve me. And one of those shifts has actually been about how I think about my own womanhood. And so in this episode, I want to be clear. I am talking about being a woman, not in a rigid one-size-fits-all way, but in a way that feels expansive. Because being a woman is whatever you interpret to be. No one gets to define that for you. And if there are parts that resonate with you, great, take them. If there's parts that don't, leave it. And that's the beauty of it, because that's the freedom and the magic behind being a woman. Actually, just being a person too. And honestly, I think that's what makes people so uncomfortable sometimes. We don't fit into one box. We never have, and we never will. And so you might be thinking, where is this coming from? Well, a few months ago, I got tired of seeing women constantly pitted against each other, tired of the narratives, tired of the conditioning, the ways that we're told what being a woman should mean. And yes, being a woman can be difficult. There are real biological, political, and socioeconomic challenges. But today, we're not centering around that. You already know those realities. Today, we're focusing on something else. And in order to do that, we have to understand why this reframe is even necessary and why I've decided that I want to talk about it and bring it to y'all. We have been conditioned as women to believe that we carry the burden of being a woman. And it shows up in subtle ways. It shows up in jokes, in passing comments, in men having easier conversations. And while yes, those conversations I think can be incredibly helpful to women, I think that they are encouraged to continue talking about them. And while there are real systems that have made things harder for us, what we've done is start to internalize that struggle as part of our identity. We've started to associate being a woman with limitation instead of expansion. Because yes, we live in a world that often empowers men to be assertive, to take up space, to move without questioning themselves when they should be. But at the same time, it has tried to teach women to shrink, to second guess ourselves, to stay palatable. And if you are a woman of color, those layers can feel even heavier. And here's the thing. We've found community in that. We've bonded over it. We bond over the difficult boss, the microaggressions, the pay gaps, the feeling of not being taken seriously or feeling like our safety is somewhat of a joke to people. The pressure is become too much, and we're also supposed to balance all of this while being perfect. While those connections matter, those conversations are so important, and I'm not taking that away. But what if that wasn't the only place that we were connecting? What if we started bonding over how powerful we are instead of just how hard it is? What if the conversations in the break room, over Zoom and group chats at brunch shifted just a little bit? What if we started saying things like, I'm proud of you. You handled that so well. You deserve more. Go after that. Because when we start speaking to each other like that, something shifts. We stop building community from survival and we start building it from a place of expansion, from a place of possibility, from a place of you do not need to feel sorry for going after something that brings you joy, that brings you your dreams and brings you whimsy. We're no longer just pulling each other apart or pulling each other out of hard situations. We're lifting each other higher. And when that happens, a few things are going to start to change. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for wanting more. And you start enjoying your life more. And you move through the world differently, stronger, more grounded, and more certain of who you are. And you do this because when you have other women encouraging you, telling you, yes, girl, go do it. And it is important. I know some people make fun of the yes, queen, yes, girl. But when you have people in your corner that are saying, yes, go and do the thing. Yes, it's going to be hard, but you can do it. When you have people supporting you and uplifting you instead of being like, I don't know, what happens if your job? What if your boss gets mad at you? What if your partner doesn't like this, that? When you have women that are instead focusing on the possibility with you, when they are being a part of that dream, what ends up happening is you feel more encouraged and more empowered to go after those things. We do not need to be living in a world where even our own community is telling us no. Our community needs to start saying yes with us. And this is where I want to kind of pause for a second, because when I say being a woman is incredibly magical. I don't mean in some unrealistic, everything is perfect kind of way. I mean in the very real, everyday ways that we've been taught to overlook. First off, we are deeply intuitive. We can walk into a room and feel the energy shift without anyone saying a word. We can read between the lines, we can notice the small things. And science actually backs this up. Women tend to pick up on micro expressions, tone shifts, and social cues way more quickly. Our brains are constantly processing emotional and social information, sometimes faster than we can even explain it. So, that gut feeling that you're getting, that's not you being dramatic. That's not you being too hypervigilant. That's actually you just being aware. And we are incredibly adaptable. I want you to think of something. If you are somebody that menstruates, we literally reinvent ourselves over and over again every month, every 21 to 28 days, not even a month, 21 to 28 days. We create new versions, new seasons, and new identities every month. We don't stay stuck forever, even when it feels like we might. And you can also take this and put it into just your life, not just about menstruating. We literally are able to create new identities for ourselves because we're constantly navigating change. We're constantly navigating hormones, life transitions, emotional processing. We're always recalibrating. And what we've labeled as inconsistency is actually flexibility, it's resilience, and we are built for connection. When you combine all of these things, it creates a big old bucket of possibility in every single woman. It is the way that women show up for each other. It's the depth of our friendships, the way we hold space for one another. All of that connection is just incredibly powerful. And those are not things that we can just put on the back burner. Those are not things that we need to be saying, oh, that's just girly things. No, it's not. It's fucking magic. And also, it's science. When women connect, we release oxytocin, which reduces stress and creates feelings of safety and trust. So those long conversations that you're having with your bestie on the phone, those check-ins, those "are you okay" texts, guess what that is? That's regulation. That's healing. That's not being too much. And when we hold duality in a way that is honestly unmatched, we can be both soft and strong, emotional and logical, nurturing and ambitious, grounded and evolving. Even the way our brains are wired just supports this. We're able to process emotion and logic at the exact same time. So no, you're not too emotional. No, you are capable of holding complexity. And that is not weakness, that is range. To be so clear, I'm not saying that men cannot be this, but my focus is not them. Not today. My focus is on the power and beauty and magic of being a woman. So part of reclaiming this is incredibly simple. But it's also complicated. It's duality of womanhood. But what it is paying attention to how you talk about being a woman. How often do you say, even jokingly, "Oh, I hate being a woman. Oh, that just makes us being women." How often do you minimize yourself? How often do you laugh things off instead of owning your power? And I'm not saying you need to wake up tomorrow and love everything and find pink and joy and love. That's not real. But what if you just started catching it? Pausing for a second. And instead of defaulting to negativity, you chose something neutral or even something more empowering. Because the way you speak about yourself and your identity matters. And I would also say, catch your friends doing this. Because when you start to create a community where you are not allowing those things to slide, where if your friend says something like, that's just, that's just being a woman, it's pause for a second right there and just think about, well, yeah, that is being a woman. And isn't that magical that our bodies can do that? Isn't it magical that we can think through those things? Isn't it so empowering and powerful? When we start using words like that, it's not about gaslighting ourselves into making things seem better, because I'm not trying to say that. Being a woman is incredibly difficult wherever you fucking go in this world. I think it's the most universal worldwide thing about being a woman is that we all have that look. We can all find community in each other when someone is being misogynistic, when someone is talking down to a woman, or when someone is just not holding space, or it's very clear that a space was not created for women. And it's an uphill battle. But here's the thing. Do we really need to when you back up for a second, when you go on a hike, when you go on a long run, when you go on a long walk, anything like that, if you had somebody sitting next to you bitching and moaning about how hard something is while you are trying to find motivation to keep going, what do you think that does to your nervous system? What if instead you had someone who's like, it's tough right now, but you know what? We're able to do this because we are strong. We are powerful. Our bodies are meant to do this. Our minds are capable of handling this. And I know some of you are going to say, but we shouldn't have to. You're right. I'm not saying we do. I'm not saying we have to have the burden of everything. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is trying to change the vibe and reframe that being a woman is not a burden. Being a woman is a gift. Being a woman is empowering, and being a woman is fun. We have innately these things within our bodies that allows us to just be more expansive, to be more beautiful, more powerful, more joyful, more whimsy, more creative, more intuitive, all of these things. And again, I'm not saying men can't be these things, but what I am talking about is that we need to start banding together, because being a woman isn't something I'm trying to survive anymore. It's something I'm learning to fully experience. The depth, the connection, the evolution, the softness, the power, all of it. And the more I lean into that, the more I realize this isn't something to resent. It's something to honor. So if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. You do not have to shrink your womanhood to fit into the narratives you've been given. You get to define it for yourself. And that, to me, is where the magic really is. And I want to also be clear, because I think sometimes it is a sensitive topic about gender and sexuality and such. Being a woman is however you define it. And I think that's the gist of what I'm trying to say. What I want you to do, though, is instead of focusing so much on the negativity, instead of focusing on all of the narratives that are out there that are saying women have to shrink, women have to be smaller, women have it harder, instead of focusing on those things, what if you started focusing on the things that made you feel more powerful, more connected, more driven, and more intuitive to your own self and what womanhood means to you? And I think that's the most important thing that I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say there's a line in the sand between men and women. I'm not trying to say there's two genders or anything like that. What I am trying to say is that however you define womanhood, I want there to be positivity within it. I want you to find the joy in your womanhood. I don't want you to feel the burden of it anymore. Like I'm not feeling the burden of it anymore. I'm not apologizing for being a woman. I'm not making it seem like my life is so much more difficult because I'm a woman. And that's all I want to say about that. Because before we end today's episode, I wanted to share something that is very fun, something that I'm very proud of, something that I'm so happy to say. But my latest romance book is officially out, and I'm so excited. And I really hope that you'll give it a listen. You can check it out on my website. It should be available on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble Press and a couple other places, but check down below. I'm a self-published author, so I'm still figuring it all out. But number one place you can go is on my website. You can see it right here. I'll pause for a second, take a screenshot, or just go down to the show notes and click on the link and then go to Author Era and then hit buy. It's only $2.99. Just support a girl. It's $2.99. The book embodies so much about what we're talking about today. And what was so important to me about this book in writing it is that I really got to connect back to that softness and that strength and holding both of those things in one character or in multiple characters. It's a story of a woman who has built a life that she loves. From the outside, she's done everything right. She's independent. She's grounded. And she's created something that feels like hers. But really underneath all of it, she's still carrying the weight of her past love, her past pain, and parts of herself that she hasn't fully faced yet. And at some point, she realizes that surviving isn't the same as living. All of these topics that I've talked about here on this podcast. And basically, Lila is her name. She makes a choice. It's not a perfect one, not a clean one. It's real. And she chooses to stop running, to stop hiding, to let herself be seen, to open herself up to love again, even when it's messy and uncomfortable. And through that, she learns that healing isn't about becoming something new. It's actually about learning to hold all the parts of who you are. And it's like holding the soft parts, the guarded parts, the joyful parts, the ones that are still figuring it out, all of them, because that's where her power is. And that's really the heart of this book. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being whole. So if this episode resonated with you, if you're in a season where you're learning to embrace more of yourself, to take up space, to stop shrinking, I think you'll really connect with Lila. And you can find it, again, linked in the show notes on my website and on Kindle and a couple other places. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking up space with me. And I'll talk to you in the next episode. Kisses.